Okay, having a look at a few questions that use the symmetry in the unit circle to work out exact values. So the type of question that you're going to see that uses this process is if you're given some information like this. So you might be told sine theta equals 0.42, cos x equals 0.7, tan alpha equals 0.38, and then you're given a series of questions to work out. And so what you're going to do is identify, because you don't know what theta, x, and alpha is. You could use your calculator to work that out, but that isn't where this question is going. It's wanting you to use the symmetry properties, and by identifying which quadrant it's in, to then be able to work out what the value is. So obviously you could go and find theta, then work out where that is and go from there and work it out as the angle, and then go and work out the next part. But that isn't what this question is asking. It just wants you to locate which quadrant it's in and use that information based on the symmetry. So the first one we've got is sine of pi plus theta. So we go, okay, here's our first diagram. My pi is over here. And so if I've got pi plus theta, I've gone round pi with an extra part of theta there. So then I can say the reference angle, or the first quadrant angle that it's going to relate to, is theta. And I say what sign, positive or negative, is sine going to be in that quadrant. So when I look down here, sine is negative in that quadrant. So I know that it is going to have the value of negative of whatever it would be in the first quadrant. And we were told back here that sine theta was 0.42, so it's going to be negative 0.42, because in that quadrant sine is negative, and so we can say it's going to be the negative of whatever it would have been had it been in the first quadrant. Another example of this, we've got cos of pi take x. So we've gone around to pi and then back x. So drawing in that little angle there, there's our angle. Our first quadrant one would be over here at x. And then we have a look at our unit circle and look at what cos is in that quadrant. So C-A-S-T. In that quadrant, cos is negative. So we know it's going to be the negative of whatever it would have been in the first quadrant. And we were told that cos x is equal to 0.7. So we know that that's going to equal negative cos x, which will be negative 0.7. And up here we could have written negative sine theta, which is negative 0.42. We do need our diagram to support that, to justify our answer in that case. So if you do have one in the exam, that's what you're looking to show on the diagram, then relate to your first quadrant angle. Then we've got sine of 2 pi minus theta. So we've gone all the way around to 2 pi and back theta. So there it is there, which relates to our first quadrant angle of theta there. We know with our CAST, we're looking at sine. In that quadrant, sine is negative. So it's going to be the same as negative sine of theta. And we know that sine theta was 0.42. So it's going to be negative 0.42 for that question. Then the last one, tan of pi minus alpha. I started writing theta, that's what got a bit messy. So pi minus alpha, so we've gone around to pi and back. Try and get a different colour there. So there's my alpha. I've gone around to pi and back alpha, which means it is the, and I've written theta again. So that's the equivalent of my alpha over here. And in that quadrant, with my CAST, it's going to be negative. So I can say that it will be the equivalent of negative tan of alpha, and I know that tan alpha is 0.38 from that initial information, so it'll be negative 0.38. I happen to choose all negative ones to start with. Obviously they can also be positive if they land in the quadrant where that ratio is positive. So hopefully that helps with those processes. Draw where that angle would be, find what the first quadrant reference angle would be, look at whether that ratio is positive or negative in the quadrant that it lands in, and then go back to that initial information that you were given.